What's up, everyone?
Yay!
And welcome back to Unsubscribe. It's feeling like a long time, hasn't it, Canal?
I think over a month we haven't been on.
A long time, yeah. So you probably are aware we were on our Easter break and then we extended it a little bit, but not because we're lazy. And then probably we've not been on camera for a little while now.
Since the Q&A.
Yeah.
Beginning of, over a month.
So a little while, but yeah, we're so pleased to be back. We're so happy that you're joining us. As always, whether it's live, whether you're watching on the catch up, we just really appreciate that you join in, and we pray that you're going to get something amazing from this episode.
It was a bit daunting after so long.
Yeah, we're warming up. We might be warming up. Let's do a quick few shout outs actually, because I've seen some people in the comments already, which is amazing. So say hi to Mason. We've got Esther with us. Thanks for joining us. We've got Sharon Cornelius, aka Mum. Thanks for joining us. Simone Ellis. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us, Simone.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, great to have you with us. Jay giving all sorts of autocorrect wording.
I mean, I'm not surprised. I am very unsurprised that you've missed us. So still works.
Angela, Ian, Rachel, Ben, and anyone else that's joining us again, thank you so much. Right, we've got, I think, a great episode and a very interesting episode to bring to you today. But
very interactive one.
Definitely. Before we get into it, we've got a few notices. So we are going to adjust slightly how Unsubscribe is going to look going forward. Now, it's nothing major, but it's good to give you guys the heads up. So because of the demands on the team, because of bits and pieces that's going on, we've decided that what we are going to do going forward is we will do our episodes every 2 weeks. Is that correct? Can always just double checks me and kicks me under the table if I get it wrong. We're going to do Unsubscribe every 2 weeks. So after our episode tonight, in 2 weeks time, we'll be joined with another episode by Jade, and we'll go on like that. Also, again, just because of a few demands and whatnot, we're going to be taking a little bit of a pause from some of the social media stuff that we have been doing. Now, I think we're still going to do little bits and pieces. We'll still have the catch-up videos. I think we'll still drop bits on Facebook, but it won't quite be as many posts as before. But again, we will look to at some point pick that back up. But again, if you're not seeing as much stuff as usual, don't worry. We're just taking a little bit of a backseat, just planning really of going forward once the lockdown rules start easing, how we're going to do Unsubscribe, hopefully in a bigger and better way. Right. Should we have a catch up?
Yeah.
From the last episode. Yeah. It was a while back, but it was a really great... I
think it's definitely needed this time.
yeah, exactly. It's been a while. But it was a great episode. It was Charlotte and Sam doing it from home. Absolute legends, because they had some issues getting into the studio, but still said, don't worry, we're going to do it from home.
And she's no longer pregnant.
Exactly. So congratulations. I'll let you pronounce. Maeva. So welcome to the world, baby Maeva. Lovely French name.
Yeah.
But here we go. Here's the catch-up video for everyone.
Hello, good evening. I think we're on episode 23.
23, can you believe that?
The title of tonight's episode is Battle Ready. How we can take control of our thought life. This really applies to everyone.
Yeah,
and it can apply for any season that you're kind of in at the moment.
Regardless of like the last year, I think we all need to have tools in our toolkit on how to be battle ready.
And in Philippians 4, 6 and 7 it says this, I'll just read it out. Don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank Him for all He has done. Then you will experience God's peace, which exceeds anything we can understand. His peace will guard your hearts and minds as you live in Christ Jesus.
So having those people in your lives that are like wise and just full of the Spirit as well, those go-to people that you have relationship with, that you've let into your life, that you have accountability with, they're the kinds of people that we share stuff with, basically, laugh with.
Are the things that you are thinking about good and wholesome?
Yeah.
Or are you thinking...
Or you segueing down like another path?
Yeah. Are you thinking about things which may trigger more worry?
So there's three main influence apparently of our thought life, and they are the external world, past experience, and our self-talk. I mean, that they're quite big subjects.
Cultivate a new way of thinking. It's no good just saying stop unless we replace that with a completely new way of thinking. Then you'll find that you might slip into old habits or old patterns.
Or it's just empty. Well, actually, we shouldn't be thankful just through times of struggle. We should actually focus it on a daily basis, like change the culture behind it.
Change the culture behind it. So again, really, really great episode, Battle Ready. And I think especially, I mean, so many of our episodes, we keep sort of going back to this last year. But of course, it has been a really crazy last year. And so I think it was a really good topic and a good reminder just for ourselves to, get some real good tips about how to be battle ready. And, you know, battles aren't always physical. They're not always literal things we're going through, but it can be mental. And I think particularly for a lot of us this last year, that has been the battle. So I think a really, really great episode. And I would encourage everyone to go back and watch it. There's only so few bits I can get into those catch-up episodes. I always feel bad because there's so much else that I'm missing out. But anything you want to add? Because it was a really good episode, I think.
No, I think it's just like very, we've had quite a lot of talks like that lately at Bright City, and I've seen in other places as well. So I think it's genuinely something of the time where we just need to be ready for the battle. We just need to be all ready because things are happening, things are coming, and you don't want to just be caught up when it's happening. You want to be ready beforehand so you know how best to, fight it and conquer it. So I think it's definitely a great reminder to always be ready, to be honest.
Definitely. Right. I'm going to breathe. I was kind of rushing to get everything out the way so that we can get into the topic today, because I am looking forward to discussing this. And drum roll, Canal. The episode is, we haven't even had a catchy title. It's about evangelism.
101.
We'll go with Evangelization 101.
We're still debating the title.
Let us know in the comments if you can think of a catchy title that sums up this episode. Let us know and we will call the episode that. But we want to talk about evangelism. So let me start by defining evangelism, because there's nothing worse than someone announcing what they're going to speak about and you think, I've got no idea what that word means. And especially in Christian circles, we love chucking words around that no one really knows what it means. So let me read out the dictionary definition that I found for evangelism, but then we can sort of sum up what it is. So evangelism is the spreading of the Christian gospel by public preaching or personal witness. So
what does gospel mean?
Exactly. Typical Christian definition. That means you've got to look up more definitions. But the gospel literally is the good news, and the good news is the message that Jesus came. Now, I know we could go further into that. We don't have time. But let's just say it's the good news that Jesus came to share with us all about God's plan for saving all of mankind. And anyway, before I digress further, evangelism is the process of sharing that with other people. When Jesus was here on earth, he began that ministry by sharing it to those he was around. But when he left this earth, he's given it to his disciples and those that he showed the gospel to spread it. Because what's the point in having good news if only a small group of people know it? And it was God's will for us all around the world to know this good news. And so evangelism in a nutshell is us as believers sharing what we believe. Now, it has a bad rap in the world by some people, and even within Christian circles. And there's a lot of Christians that the word evangelism just makes them shudder, makes them think of bad things. And so we just want to sort of delve into that as best we can with the time that we've got tonight to just sort of unpack some of these things. Maybe, we're going to discuss maybe why it does have a bad image in the world and even within Christian circles amongst ourselves. Why maybe are there some of us that don't necessarily view it well? And on the flip side, why are there people that are really passionate about it?
And what do we sometimes feel uncomfortable?
Exactly. So let me put the spotlight on you first, Canel, with a question. And actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. Before I do that, you've got a verse, haven't you? Because there's no point us saying, oh, we need to share the gospel if it's not grounded in anything. But as Canel's going to show us, my lovely wife, there is a biblical principle behind sharing the gospel. It's in a lot of parts, but there's one particular bit of the Bible you're going to read now, isn't it?
Yes, so there's 2 verses actually, because I put 1 verse in my highlights on the Bible app, and then I just checked the one underneath that I put a few weeks ago actually goes with it. So cool. I guess I was all led. So they're both in Matthew, and you've probably or maybe not heard of the term the Great Commission. And the Great Commission is the Great Commandment that Jesus left to the disciples and to everyone afterwards, just before his last times on earth, just before he went. And he said, it says in Matthew 28:19, therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and of the Holy Spirit. And in Matthew 9:37, he said to his disciples, the harvest is great, but the workers are few. So pray to the Lord who is in charge of the harvest. Ask him to send more workers into his fields.
Yeah. Jesus loved using farming analogies. I quite like them. But true. Jesus himself gave his disciples the commission or the commandment, basically. Go out and spread this good news that I've given you. It's not just for us to keep to ourselves and be like some little private club that know this good news. And there's so many other parables and stories throughout the Bible that Jesus shared, that his disciples then sort of shared as well, that were all about spreading the gospel.
To be honest, most of us wouldn't be Christians today if the disciples didn't spread outside of, the Jerusalem area. So we're all products really of evangelization.
Yeah, evangelization.
I'll probably use the word evangelization because that's like the French way of saying it. If I'm wrong, you know what I mean. Yeah. So we didn't want to, come here and say, this is what John and Canal think and believe, and there is only one way. So we actually went and reached out to a few people to give us some more insight and maybe some other opinions as well. So we've reached out to Tanya, Jade, that you know. We've got Paula as well, Louisa, Jay, Vicky, Jenny.
A lot of people. Yeah, we got a lot of responses. We put a question out there to a number of people, and we got a lot of great responses, which we will intersperse tonight as we go along. But as always, let us know in the comments as well. Even if you're someone that gave some answers to us, let us know in the comments, because again, I believe anyway, the beauty of doing these streams are they remain. So even if someone's not live watching it now, they might pick it up at a later date and then be able to get so much more by seeing the comments and the discussion that people have had.
So you can react to any of the types of questions we'll ask and just give more. If we don't see them, it's all right. People in the comments see them anyway.
Definitely. If we do see them and we get a chance, we will put them up just so that people get to see it. So I'm going to start with a question for you, Canal. And let me start with this. I want you to give me an example of when you have been evangelized to. What it involved and how did you receive it? Was it positive or negative?
So actually, I can say I've been evangelized to before I gave my life to Jesus, and I've been evangelized to after by people that obviously wouldn't know I was a Christian. So before, I've always been to church, so Sunday service, Sunday school. Sunday school is a great place to evangelize. We don't really realize maybe when we're going through it, or as parents, we don't really realize, I don't know. But it's definitely one of the first places that children that go to church would be evangelized to. Obviously, there's the parents if you grow up in a Christian family, but then Sunday school, kids camps. When I was a teenager and I went to Christian camps, things online, and then since I've been a Christian, there's a few times where, because I come from Paris, in the metro, people sometimes gave me a little note or tried to talk to me, and I was like, I'm already a Christian.
Get out of jail free card.
But I always think, this is so cool. I want to be a bit more bold and do that. I've done stuff, but I always find it cool when I get evangelized too. It's good to see it's getting done.
And yeah, I guess for me it would be very, very similar. So I definitely had a longer period of my life, I guess, not being a Christian, so to speak, but I wasn't anti-Christian by any means. So I've had experiences of people sort of sharing the gospel, but maybe not, looking back, I can't think of too many times I was confronted with it a lot when I wasn't a Christian, but it might just be that I wasn't as receptive. It may have happened and you just forget. Like, I wouldn't remember every time someone stopped me in the street to ask me to sign up for a charity, but it has happened a lot of times.
Yeah.
You forget about it. But definitely since I've become a Christian, I've seen it more. And we're going to get into this in more detail later, but I would say around the time I did become a Christian, looking back now, I realized people were evangelizing to me. Just I didn't realize what it was at the time, and it's not sneaky. It's not like they tricked me, but especially learning the word evangelism when I became a Christian, because that wasn't a normal word to sort of know. For me, it was the person that stands on the street with the placard telling people they're going to hell. So I thought that was kind of really what evangelism was. But then I realized, oh, there's actually different ways that people close to me even shared the gospel with me, but it wasn't so direct. It was more of a long-term project, so to speak. But we're going to get into that in a bit later. Now, I'm going to flip the question, Canal. So back to you. What are some of your experiences of evangelizing? So
that I did.
Yeah. So you now going out and sharing your faith.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I've done it quite a lot in different ways. I mean, there's a part of my younger days, which might make some people laugh because I'm still very young, but my even younger days where I was even in full-time mission. So I've done it through being a leader in kids camps, and obviously there were Christian camps, and you obviously have to incorporate a few times a day some kind of Sunday school, but through camps and stuff like that. So I've done various different types of camps with various different ways of doing evangelization there, whether it was direct or indirect. I worked for Youth for Christ France, where I was leading street shows, and we would go in the street in different places through like different types of camps or events or different things, work with the authorities, like the cities where we would go, and I was in charge of doing the street show, so we would do kind of dances and
there were
different
big projects as well, weren't they?
Yeah, it was really good. I did Sunday school for the teenagers, youth group, even Unsubscribe, friendships. There's been so many different ways. I forget a bit of all the different ways, but different types. I'm definitely not someone that is comfortable with just going in the street and start talking to people. I'm not someone that does it in a direct way like that to people that are not Christian or don't have any concept of it, because that's just not what I feel comfortable doing. That's not where my gift is. But I've been around that circle and been working alongside people that would do that.
I mean, yeah, when I met Canel, she was involved in, you were doing so many like these camps and street shows and really like big projects, and really cool as well, because you sort of like just take over whole town squares, like the squares in the middle of towns, and do nice shows and
do barbecues in like Muslim areas.
Yeah, just like a nice community thing, just bring people together.
That's the word. I like that community thing. I think that's more the comfortable way of doing evangelization that I like doing. It's like connecting with people either through arts or in a community friendship relationship way. Yeah,
and we'll get into it, I guess, a bit later, but there were some responses we got that were kind of similar, actually, talking about the arts and things like that, and it can be is a really powerful way of spreading the gospel.
We get some people that are asking us, how do you evangelize? Don't worry, we'll talk about practical ways of doing it. So bear with us.
Definitely, yeah. That's got to be one that we get into. I guess for myself, in terms of evangelizing, again, it's been a journey really, and it's probably a constantly evolving journey. So I'd say when I first got saved, I was probably that quite typical. I don't know. You know, when people just straight away get saved, they're quite, again, another Christian term, we say on fire. But I was just really excited about this new sort of journey, this new life that I was on, and I just wanted to tell people, because it's like, if something has been so exciting to you, it's like anything in life. If you've had something amazing happen, you just want to share it. So I remember just speaking and sharing bits and pieces, and then probably over time you adjust a bit, because you realize not everyone always is going to be as excited as you. Some people actually take your excitement, the thing that's exciting for you, as a negative. So you sort of adapt and adjust. Again, I've been on different sort of projects in the towns that I've been in, abroad. I've been able to preach, fortunately. I've done things like Unsubscribe.
I think I've brought you in as well. France or Belgium.
Yeah, exactly. And music, I guess a big one for me has been doing music, which again we're going to get into a bit later. But again, it's not to list it off to be like, I've done this, but it's just, I've been fortunate to be involved in a lot of different opportunities, I guess. And a lot of those, I wouldn't have classed it as evangelism at the time. That's probably the key, one of the key points that we'll sort of going to be mentioning tonight, which is worth bringing up now, which is, what do we understand by evangelism? I touched on before how I understood it was something very specific, and it was that kind of typical going out and overtly sharing the faith to strangers. Actually, there was a caveat for me. It was like, evangelism is when you go to a stranger out of the blue and you tell them about Jesus. And then I've come to realize that actually there's so many other ways of sharing the gospel, even to the point of, I will say, evangelizing within Christian circles. And that might sound a bit controversial, but for sure.
Well, first of all, Sunday school.
Yeah.
You're doing it point. I think we can't underestimate the value of doing that to the children that come from Christian families and come to church.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, should we get into some of the questions? Canel's got a list of some questions here, and we'll go through some of them, and then these are some of the questions that we've had some answers in to. So we'll either sort of read out what people have said, or we've sort of summarized the answers that people have given us.
I forgot to save what my questions were. Apologies. 2 seconds.
Lisa Buckingham, no worries about the angry emoji. It's always tricky getting the right emojis on this thing when you're having to press all sorts.
Sorry, so here are my questions. I asked, so should I read them all?
No, let's keep it as a surprise, but we'll go through different ones.
So one of my questions was, do you think there is a one recipe to evangelization? And if yes, what is it? And if no, why?
Great question.
First of all, you can answer in the comments.
yeah, please let us know. And I'll keep my eye on the comments coming up, and I'll try and post them up as we go. But is there one way to evangelize? So I guess I've sort of teed this up with the comments before. I thought there was one. I thought evangelism meant one thing. And I would say that my experience, because of the kind of churches I've sort of fallen into since I've been a Christian, for want of a better phrase, that's quite the way I thought evangelism is quite a popular way of evangelizing within the churches that I've been involved in. So I guess it sort of solidified the idea in me for a while that is how you evangelize. Now, I would actually personally say, going forward, no, I don't believe there is. And I do want to say the churches I have been involved in have never said there's one form of evangelizing. It's just naturally what I assume. So I'm not saying the church has told me this. But no, I do believe there's a number of different ways to evangelize. So whether it's through your lifestyle, I think how you live.
That's a big one.
Particularly if you're consistent, I think. Because I think it's sort of
if you have one good day,
exactly.
but then the next day you start, go around and do really bad stuff and being a really bad person. Obviously, that's not really gonna show people the character of Jesus through you.
Definitely. So Sarah Mantisbus just said, no, evangelism can be verbal and non-verbal. I mean, that's a great place to start. Evangelism isn't just always
The
out of
Bible
your
says
mouth.
it. I'm quoting, I can't remember exactly where, but the Bible does say that without, I think it's in James, without actions, our faith needs to be reflected through actions. So yes, we do have the faith, and if we want to show this faith as well, we need to do the actions to show it. And same for love. Love need to be shown. You see things, and I think it goes with being able to share it with your character and your life.
Definitely. And Sarah, here we go. I'll put this up. So Rachel's put, faith without deeds is dead. That's what we were looking for.
That's in James.
So yeah, faith without what? Faith without doing practical things to show what this faith means to you is dead. What's the point? Again, I kind of go back to why I believe Jesus was saying share the gospel, because it's like, if this is such great news, it doesn't make sense that just a small group of people know it. And sometimes I think there's a danger that believers can fall into that trap of that safety of the church as a closed building, as we feel comfortable with each other, and then you can almost start thinking the world out there is a scary place.
Yeah, and I've known people like that. I've known, especially like growing up, I always had friends in church circles that were not allowed to have friends outside of Christians, or were not able. It became very centered, and then seeing them becoming adults, they get really like scared of the world. Because they're not allowed to go out of the world growing up. But then obviously we face the world, and then they would just get really scared of the world and didn't know how to react with the world, and we'd become quite awkward people when they would try to share their faith, because they just couldn't relate to them and people couldn't relate back.
Which I think is where you get the issue from both sides, the misunderstanding. Right, from the outside, a lot of times church can be looked at as almost cultish and this a bit weird, but again, because maybe for a lot of communities they don't realize what the church is doing. It's just a strange building that a group of people go to every Sunday, stay there, you hear some faint music, and they leave, and you don't see nothing else. So from the outside they're not sure, and then from the inside, wrapping themselves in so much cotton wool perhaps that you actually probably
we just act on our fear of the world.
You almost start thinking that people who aren't Christian are this almost different race of people. Like we can't possibly mingle with them, because what if it corrupts us? What if whatever? And I think that misunderstanding is probably cause of a lot of friction and problems sometimes. So I definitely think that's a key one. I want to touch on something that Sarah has also said here, which is the way you live your life is a form of evangelism.
And then that goes with what Ian said.
Yep, I'll put these up at the same time. So Sarah, you probably see on the screen now, true, the way you live your life is a form of evangelism. And then Ian said there are 3 testaments: the Old Testament, the New Testament, and the New Testament, the power of your life. So let's start with this point. How important is it how you live your life to evangelize, if that makes sense?
Well, first of all, have you ever had someone tell you to do something? Even maybe like your parents, I don't know, telling you to do something and like kind of like commanding you something, but then you look at them and you're like, but you don't even do it. It's just, to me, it just goes,
That
it
whole,
comes
like,
here.
do what I say.
And then it's forgotten as soon as it's been said. I'm like, what? You don't even do it. I can't see you do that. So I think it's exactly the same. We have to bear in mind, if we say something to people, but then behind they're like, yeah, but that's not how you live your life. Well, yeah, true. So if you're telling them about Jesus, they should see it through you. I remember, can't remember who said that or where I heard it, but years ago, I heard 2 things. One thing was, for some people, you will be the only time they see Jesus. And I thought that was very powerful. and then, or the first time they see Jesus. And then also for parents out there, someone once said, parents, Christian parents, it's the first time that their children see Jesus. And for that, that means we have to live the way that Jesus wants us to live. You never know when you're going to meet someone, and that might be the only time or the first time they ever see Jesus through you. So for that to happen, you need to reflect Jesus, like reflect the fruits of the spirit and his character. And I'm not saying we're all perfect, and I'm not saying I am Jesus, but I'm saying I'm definitely not, but I'm saying, yeah, we need to get closer to him. Christians mean mini Christ, mean if you are a Christian, you are a mini version of Jesus. So you need to be reflecting that. People need to see it. And there's so many times where I've heard people, or even myself, people that I didn't say to them, I'm Christian. I think that's even happened to you. I didn't say to them, I'm a Christian, but one day randomly, it could have been a colleague, could have been friends, they'll be like, are you a Christian? And I'll be like, why? We're like, well, because you sound or you act like a Christian, you behave like a Christian, but like in a very positive way, like, or I've had people say, yeah, my colleague asked me if I was a Christian, because when I asked why, they said, because there's something about you, just like a light or something. And they wouldn't be Christian people, but they just could recognize it in us. So I think that's very important to reflect it.
Yeah, and I think actually that's also, we talk a lot about, I think it's tempting as believers to kind of just worry about stereotypes, and sometimes we probably focus on the bad stereotypes of Christians, and I think that probably puts a lot of fear in believers. Even with this topic, evangelism, is that fear of how do people view Christians? Are they going to assume I hate this person? I don't support this. But there's also a lot of good stereotypes out there about Christians that is easy to forget. And I've said it so many times, especially, I guess, coming from an outside church environment to being within church. There's so many things that as a church, sometimes we take for granted, great things. Like, I remember when I moved to Ashford, and I've shared this a few times, I was a young, like, single guy, and people would just invite me to their house for dinner. And that was so amazing to me, to think like, what, you hardly know me, but you just want to get to know me, and you're willing to feed me, you're willing to discuss, you're willing to help me sort of put my roots down in this town. Now, the longer I've been in church, the more it's easy to forget how amazing it is, because it's like, well, that's normal. Like, we're not doing it to prove a point. You just, why would you not have your friends around? Why would you not have a life group? But when you don't know these terms, going to someone's house and having like 8 people all just talking positively, it's not that normal to have that kind of situation in the world. And so there's a lot of good things. And I think as well, like you were saying, Canel, lifestyle is so important. That's why I think it's so important that we have the right foundations in place to live consistently.
And also, sorry, we never know at which point of their life we meet people, right? I remember when I was doing Bible school, discipleship school, one of the teachers said there's this scale, I can't remember the name of that scale, the specific scale people use in evangelization, which is like the scale of someone's life, and you've got the top of the scale is never heard a word about Jesus, don't know who Jesus is, don't know who God is, and then there's like lots of different steps, and then in the middle of the ladder you have I know Jesus and I gave my life to Jesus, and even after, the ladder doesn't stop, it still goes down up to, well, I'm dead and I met Jesus in heaven. But there's all different periods of like on the ladder where you can meet the person, and then you don't know at which part of the person's life you will meet them. So you might meet them where you be the very, very first tiny seed drop that will talk to them about Jesus, and they might 10 years later, maybe someone else will come and meet them and then they will remember, oh yeah, I remember about that. And then, the seed keeps growing and growing. Or you might meet them at, well, actually, I just heard about like gave my life to Jesus kind of last week, but I don't really know more. And then you can help them out through the journey. So never underestimate that. And if you bear that in mind as well, it helps you not, bring it to people's face in a way where it gets quite aggressive as well.
Definitely. And I think, again, that's why I was mentioning foundations, is that when your foundations are solid, it's easier to live consistently.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of times it's not just that living the way Jesus wants us to live is only for our benefit. There's a bigger calling on our lives. Canel shared the verse that we're all meant to share the gospel. And as so many people have shown, our lifestyle is a major way that we share the gospel. If our life is all over the place, as in we're not really that rooted in our own faith, one of two things: you're either not going to reflect it, or you're going to be reflecting it in a false way, which I hate to break it to anyone that's trying to do that. It's so obvious when people are doing that. It's so, you don't have to know every detail of someone's life to know that when you're like being super nice, like I'll give you the example of marriage. It would be very obvious, I think, if me and Canel were just not having a good marriage behind the scenes. And we could come on camera, we could try and do the whole fake, like this is a godly marriage. But you guys would pick this up after a couple of episodes. And that, for example, marriage could be an example of the gospel for someone watching this or seeing our lives. And so if we're not focused on the foundations of what's going on in our own life, it's going to be a missed opportunity to be sharing the gospel, let alone the problems it would have in our own lives. And so I think it's very important to make sure that you're also focusing on the foundation of your life.
And also, like, usually people that have the opportunity to get to know your life, that means you're building relationships with them. Now, it doesn't mean that from the first time you're basically going to be like, I'm building a relationship with you because I am a Christian, I want to evangelize. No, like, this must be a bit overwhelming and counterproductive. But I mean, by building the relationship with the person, that will come up because it's part of your life. They'll probably ask questions. You have opportunities to invite them to places, ask them things. Can I give the example of my friends? No, saying yourself.
No.
I don't really think we're serious. Awkward. Kidding. So my best friend and her husband, they've been very involved in their church, in lots of different ministries, and for the last about year, about that, they've decided for a while they had a heart to really invest in their neighborhood, and they just dropped all of their other ministries and started to build a ministry for their neighborhood where, they do it properly, where they have people that pray for them and help them and they're supported. But what they do is they're building relationships with their neighbors. They've introduced themselves. They've done things that, most people probably would be like, whoa, this is like very different. They've dropped cards in people's letterboxes saying, hi, this is our family, this is where we live, we'd really like to meet you, and for anything, just help us out. And because they were led by the Holy Spirit, they've done great things. In like this last year, they've built a gym in their building where my friend's husband goes multiple times a week, do workout with different people, and that helps them build relationships. And now some of them have been able to invite them to online church, to physical church, because in France you can speak about the gospel. It's Ramadan at the moment. They make patisseries for their neighbors that are Muslims, and go and get to them at the end of the day to share. They do different things, so there's not one way to do evangelization.
No, definitely, and I kind of want to wrap this point up now, just because it's I'm looking at time, but I think, as you can see, it's such a key, probably for most people, the biggest way that they will be able to evangelize, and long term as well. I think we'll touch on some other forms of evangelizing, which I think are perhaps more short term for the majority of us believers. But how you live your life, you can do that until the day you die. And so it's very important. And there's a few sort of just bits I want to sort of share from the comments, which have been really, really good, I think. So one was from, it's my mum, but I'll say Sharon for ease. So Sharon had put that Mark Driscoll whose pastor says that one of the fascinating aspects of talking to unsaved people about Jesus is that they actually function as missionaries themselves before their conversion by speaking to their family and friends about what they're learning about Christ. And it's true. So when you are sort of evangelizing, it might be the way you're living your life and people may start asking questions. Then that person might go back and be like, my friend so-and-so, like, do you know they do this before dinner? Or do you know, like, when this happened, they dealt with it in this way.
Yeah.
And they're inadvertently going to be sharing the gospel as well. And so many people have said that friendship is key. Ben made a really good point that when Sid and Liz sort of brought him, I guess, to salvation, they took responsibility for him and invested into his life. I think I've posted it, but I'll post it again. Like I was saying, people invited him around for dinner. That Ben saying that people gave him lifts, they enabled him. All these things are key, and a lot of the answers we got, I know Jade said it's one of the best forms of evangelism is how you live your life. Tanya said the same thing. I think the majority of people we asked, ourselves included, we would say that's arguably one of the biggest and most powerful ways you can evangelize. And like I'm saying, I think because it's got more long-term effect, because if you're living your life consistently in line with Christ, you don't have to go out of your way to evangelize people. It will just be almost flowing out of you.
That's just an easy way that everyone can do evangelization.
Definitely. What I do want to sort of finish on is maybe to share the other side of that, which is Ian's made a very good point here, which I truly believe as well, because it's a vibe I've had at times in my life. Is you don't want people around you to feel like they're your project. And I feel like I can't state this enough, because I've been on the receiving end for it, and who knows, maybe I've been guilty of doing it before, but it can be with the best intentions. Like I say, you believe that the gospel needs to be shared, but if it doesn't come across as sincere, it might have a completely negative effect, or it might just leave a bitter taste in someone's mouth. If you've invested so much into someone, and then some things can happen. Either they get saved and all of a sudden the investment stops. That person's going to think like, what the heck? I thought we were friends. You only wanted me to get saved. Or it just can seem very insincere. And I think it's a key thing to remember is and we're going to maybe go on to this point now, is all evangelism should be done out of love for someone. No one should be your project. You shouldn't be investing in someone's life because of an end goal. The end goal should be because of your love for them. That should always be key. It's the same as any relationship. It would be weird if I was with Canel for a project. Like, I'm with Canel because I love her, and then as a married couple, we can do things. We can build things. We can whatever. But if I was thinking, do you know what? Yeah, Canel's quite business savvy, and with my skills in this area, she'd be perfect. And then maybe I'll learn to love her. But that's the project that I've got planned. It's going to be a disaster, and it would be the same with our friendships. And a final bit I want to add to this is, again, just a question I'll put out there. I think the danger with this friendship evangelization, or our lifestyle is our evangelism, the danger of that is we can get lazy and we can not go out of our comfort zone. I think of the example of Jonah. Jonah was called to do something by God, but he didn't want to do it that way, and he thought that he knew best for that person, but God had other plans. And ultimately what God needed Jonah to do was uncomfortable for him, but it's what God needed him to do. And I think we have to be very open with our faith, and we have to be open with our relationship with God. I, again, strongly agree that the lifestyle we lead is a big and powerful evangelism tool, but don't use that as an excuse to be lazy and be like, well,
I'm just living my life.
Yeah, I'm just one of these lifestyle evangelisms, man. Like, it's not really for me to go and share the gospel. I don't know why you'd speak like that, but
that's his American voice.
Yeah, it's just my standard accent that I do when I'm doing an impression. But yeah, the point being, don't use it as an excuse to be lazy, because as well as living a lifestyle that honors God, one aspect of that lifestyle is you've now submitted your life to God. And if God wants you to go and share to that person, and as you grow in your faith, you will know when God's prompting you to share something.
Yeah.
It's not about you feeling embarrassed or you worrying what that person's going to think about you. That should be secondary. If God needs you to do something, you need to share. And sometimes just living your lifestyle, like Canel said, people in different areas of their faith, they may not even have a clue what Christianity is. So it's all well and good that your lifestyle looks nice to them,
And also,
but it might not mean anything.
It's not the only way. So just remember, it's not the only way to do it.
Definitely. So how about we go on to this next point, which is sort of, I think, an answer that you got to some of your questions, which is doing evangelism with love. If I ask that to you, Canel, what does that mean? Like,
Do we evangelize with love?
Yeah, to have love when you're evangelizing and the importance of it.
Well, the Bible clearly says, without love is vain. Like, if you 1 Corinthians 13 really read it, it's so powerful. It says you could do everything in the world. You could like speak every tongue. You could, say all the prophets. You could do everything in the world, but ultimately, if you don't have love, you have nothing. Is the one thing that remains. So you could, I don't know if you've ever experienced it, but I've seen people who've experienced it where I'm like, whoa, I know I'm a Christian, so I know what you're saying, but I mean, where's the love in what you're saying? All you preach is like, it just comes across like super aggressive, or just like this, you have to be a Christian because you're going to go to hell if you don't, which I'm not saying is not true, but I'm also saying, where is the love in that? You're not loving the person you're saying that. It's like you've got a speech. One of the people we asked a question to said that, I can't remember who, but it's like you're trying to recite the whole speech that you've got, and you're like, well, this is my speech, this is how I do it, so I'm gonna say it to every single person, but I don't actually really love them. It's just, I have to say it. But Jesus, the main message is, God so loved the world that he sent his one and only son to save us all.
Yeah, the first part is God loved the world.
Yeah, he so loved the world that's what he did it. He didn't do it because, we might think, no, but it's because of that. I'm like, ultimately, the message of love is the message of God. The message of God is the message of love. So for me, that's like very important. And if we do things in love, it might not be that what someone does to evangelize suits you. You would have responded to it well, or you'd be thinking, why are they doing it? But I mean, if they're led by the Holy Spirit, if they pray for it, if they do it out of love, you don't know them. It might genuinely touch that person. We're all different. Every single one of us on earth is different. So every single one of us can respond to things differently. We can, connect to things differently. We can see things differently. I think Jenny was saying that Jenny and Jay actually both said that for them, like, the message of hell was, like, made them run to God.
No, not quite for Jenny. I think tried to write notes of what people have said. So I think Jay had mentioned that did impact her somewhat. And I think we've got Jay in the comments. So if we're misquoting you, you can clarify. But Jenny said something very interesting, which was she kind of knew about the concept of hell before she got saved. And so she was saying that it actually, she was glad that she knew of this before she was evangelized to, because it helped, she could really understand the purpose of why Jesus had to do what he did, which that's the key message. Like, that's ultimately the gospel. Is it's not that God knew everyone was going to hell, so he sent Jesus. It's God loved the world. There were consequences to not knowing God, but it was ultimately that God loved the world, which is why he sent Jesus. And I think sometimes that form of evangelizing, of just telling people they're going to hell, a lot of us will know what it's like when someone puts you on the back foot and makes you feel judged or attacked. It could even have truth what they're saying, but you're going to put up the
but not everyone, because Jay said that's what made her run to God. So, I don't know if you've ever been in the metro or the subway, and then you hear people shout, "You're going to hell, blood repent," and every time I'm like, oh my goodness, why are you saying that? Because that does the complete opposite. I'm glad I'm a Christian, because that would not make me come to God. But I know other people might, and that's okay. It's not because it's not my way. My way is probably different, but I think that's why we need to. One key thing for me is God gave us all gifts and sensibilities, and we need to be in tune with the Holy Spirit and use those things that God gave us personally and use them in the context of evangelizing and missioning to people.
We use that word.
You know what I mean.
Definitely. Well, let's get on to gifts in a minute, actually, because I think that's another great one to touch on. But I feel like we do need to stick on this street evangelizing bit for a bit, because funnily enough, it came up in a lot of people's answers, didn't it? And I think, truth be told, the word evangelism, even for most of us, probably conjures up images of, that person in the street telling people they're going to hell, or with a megaphone preaching the gospel. And a few people, Tanya had said that she'd actually had a bad experience with street evangelism, and I think it made her feel quite uncomfortable
and personal.
Jade had a similar experience. I've seen it before, where sometimes I thought, it seems, I wouldn't say I felt uncomfortable personally, but more that I think, you're bold, like you're bold to do that, because it wouldn't naturally come to me.
But then Paula said that she's done it, and the way she's done it, she always prays before for God to give her specific people to go to and to give her exactly what to say to them. So
exactly, I think there's a method to it, and I think Canel's already touched on the main part, which is there's different approaches to everyone, but that also means that may be what is right for some people, and if someone is feeling that that's the best way for them to share the gospel, the fact that there are people that in their testimony will say it was that got me saved shows me that at least for some people that's a valuable approach. And the fact that some people do feel passionately to share the gospel in that way makes me also think it is a way. I mean, as believers, hell is real. So at the same time, it's not like I'm hearing it and thinking, wow, you're making up lies, no one's going to hell, so why are you trying to scare people? I mean, there's a truth to it. But what I would say is, especially a form of evangelism like that, I think, like you're saying with Paula's example, it's very key. If you do feel that that's how you're going to share the gospel, I think make sure you pray about it. Make sure you seek wisdom. It's good to do that with all forms of evangelism, don't get me wrong. But the lifestyle evangelism we're talking about, it's more a long-term thing, like I'm saying. You're focusing on how you live your life, and inadvertently you may be evangelizing. Going out to evangelize
is different.
You want to make sure that you're doing it in the wrong way, because you could lead people to Christ, you could lead people away from Christ.
Louisa saying, telling people they have to be good to be saved or have to act in a particular way to be saved is just not the way to do it. Because that means you're doing that instead of acknowledging that we have all sinned, but Jesus Christ paid for every single one of them by dying on the cross. It's not by deeds, it's by faith.
Definitely, exactly. And I think a key bit is making sure the gospel is spread. And another bit linked to it is, that understanding that you can't take for granted that so many things you're going to say, it may not be understood by people. Like a lot of times what you'll hear is like, we are all sinners. Because of our sin, Christ had to come to die to save us from the fiery pit of hell. You might be able to break down that statement and it's true. But to the average person who's not been raised in a church culture, let's start from the beginning. What does sin even mean? What does that mean to someone?
Put yourself at the level of the person. Definitely. It might sound simple, but it's actually not, because it's very hard. But remember, when you want to do evangelization, put yourself at the level of the person. If they are a child, easy, like it's easy to think, I have to put myself in child's position. But sometimes it's not, because we'll use adult words. But it's the same for adults. If someone never heard of church, never heard of something, like Joel said, you can't go with big words, big Christian words. So put yourself at the level of the person, meet them where they are, and to do that, you need to, even if it's like quick in the street, you need to build a relationship in the sense that you can't just go and say something that you're like, you could have said that to anyone and no one. So even if it's just very quick, if you're led and if you listen to the Holy Spirit, He'll lead you to meet the person where they are.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a key thing is, if you're evangelizing, ask yourself why you're doing it. Don't focus on the what as your first thing. There's a principle, I think the guy's called Simon Sinek, not a Christian guy, but he talks about, I think it's the golden circle. a lot of people, when they're looking to market something, and I'm not saying we're trying to sell Christianity, but we're still trying to share the gospel, they'll focus on the what, then I believe the how, then the why. So what it is that we do, how we're going to do it, why we do it. Whereas to be impactful, it's much better if you flip it. Instead of thinking, what am I going to do, evangelize? How am I going to do it, share the gospel? Yeah, I'm doing it, but why? Because people need to be saved. Ask yourself, why am I doing it? Because people need to be saved. It should change how you view. When you're looking at that stranger in the street, they're not just a project, they're not just a number. So you can go home and think, oh, I evangelized to 20 people today, well done me. You look at that individual and think, wow, they may not know the good news, this good news that set me free. They may not know that. And then you're going to tailor your approach, hopefully, to them. And if that's not making you think, oh, the good news that set me free, maybe you need to look at yourself first and think, what does the gospel mean to me? Am I free, or do I not even understand? Because if you don't understand the gospel, you don't have to have a theological understanding, but if you don't understand what Jesus means to you and what he's done for you, how are you going to share that with someone?
The message of the gospel is simple. So don't try to use big, difficult ways of explaining it. It's so simple. You should be able to say to anyone.
Definitely.
That's like something one of my teachers said one day, and I was like, oh yeah, so true. Like sometimes we use such big words or theologies, and I'm like, what? But the gospel is simple.
Definitely. And to finish this point, I just want to sort of, again, with a bit of a counter argument, is Jenny made a really good point that I've noted down. And she said, it can feel uncomfortable to hear the gospel. I'm paraphrasing her here. She said, it can be uncomfortable to hear the gospel, but the truth can be uncomfortable. It's also glorious. And that's a key thing to remember as well, because like I'm saying, a lot of us, I don't want us to use the excuse of true, evangelism can be bad. A lot of people think negatively of it, whatever your reason. So therefore, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to live my life and hope people see it, because you may well get negative reactions, but it doesn't mean the truth isn't a glorious truth. But sometimes the truth is hard to hear. Always use marriage examples. They're easiest for me. But sometimes Canel's got to tell me some home truths, and at time I don't want to hear it. Like, I'm almost annoyed at her for telling me, but I can't deny it. Yeah, when I go away and think, I know deep down she's telling the truth. It's not that she shouldn't have told me truths, because the truth was hard for me to hear. There's a grace that you need, and God will give you the wisdom of how to deliver that truth. But don't be scared to deliver a truth that can be uncomfortable.
And one principle is, you're not the one that saves people. Just get that out of your mind.
Great point.
You are not the one that saves people. The only person that saves people is Jesus. The Holy Spirit will come and convince hurts. You're not the one that's gonna, be Jesus. So all we can do is spread it.
Definitely.
But we're not the ones that convince the hurt. We're not the ones that save. So get that out of your mindset. To be honest, that just relieves myself. That just relieves me. I'm like, it's not on your shoulder to save people. What we're being asked to do is to share it to people. We're not being asked to convince the hurts. And only one can do that, and it's not us.
It's a really good point. And it's weird why it's so easy to forget. Like, if I've had a good meal at a restaurant and I think that was amazing, I've got to tell people. I tell my friend, they come back to me and say, I hated it. I'm not feeling embarrassed. I'm not feeling shame. I'm just thinking, oh, that's a shame. They messed up for you. But I was just sharing the message. This analogy is loose, because I'm not saying, oh, God messed up for you. But my point is, we can almost take it so personal, as in I don't want to share it, because if they don't want to hear the gospel, what will they think of me? It's not really what it's about. So it's a great point. It's God that saves people. So it will take the pressure off you thinking you need to be somebody, you need to be something, you need to have pastor before your name, before you share the gospel. I believe it was, Jenny again, but I think I've seen this in a few other people's answers that said, surely the biggest issue is just not trying to share the gospel in the first place. Have wisdom, sure, but don't let that stop you from just trying to share the gospel. And there's a lot of growth that often happens in our lives outside of our comfort zone. And some ways of sharing our faith, it will feel uncomfortable to us. We may worry about rejection. We may worry what our image is going to be. But I've done a lot of things as well where I've really not wanted to do it at the time. But I can look back and think, I grew so much. And even more important than that, wow, actually people received the gospel. it wasn't all
Because
terrible.
I
I didn't get
obeyed.
spat at. Yeah, the fact I went out and I felt uncomfortable, but it gives me more confidence in God to think when I didn't know what to say, God gave me the words to
It's
say.
an act of obedience because that's the commandment we've got. And there's so many different ways, like there's practical ways. Vicky says that for her it's through music, TV, speaking, art, writing, anything that someone may consider a hobby can be used for the work of God. Her favorites are through writing and music because writing helps someone visualize something, which can help bring it to life. And music, as we all know, worship makes us feel things. And some people have gone to missions in other countries far away. Some people have done local initiatives in their local area. Some people will be their neighbors, bringing food to your neighbors, caring for your neighbors. It could be to your family, it could be to a homeless person in your street. You don't need to go far to evangelize. You don't need to stay local to evangelize. It could be to anyone, your colleagues. It could be through anything that's a gift for you. There's this verse that says in 1 Peter 4:10, it's one of my favorite verses. It says, each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. And also, although we are all called to evangelize, we're not all called to be evangelists. There's a difference.
So yeah, what's the difference? Because I think we need to make sure we clarify that.
Yeah, so in the Bible, in Ephesians 4, there are those 5 ministries that you can have. You could be an apostle, you could be a prophet, could be an evangelist, a pastor, or a teacher. Now, all of them are things that we'll see in the church. We can all teach, we can all pastor someone, we can all evangelize someone, we can all have words of prophecy, we can all, be like apostles, but it doesn't mean that's your anointing. So some people are
We need
anointed.
like a Christian dictionary as we go along.
There's like some people are specifically called by God. God puts a specific gift onto their life to be an evangelist. And these people, it's like a very specific set apart gift they have to be evangelists. And you can tell because people like Billy Graham, if you don't know who he is, Google him. He's definitely an evangelist.
Amazing evangelist.
But I'm like, all right, I know I'm called to evangelize because Jesus said to everyone, but I'm not called to be a Billy Graham.
Not like anointed in that way. I always use Pastor David as a great example. You can just tell if anyone that knows Pastor David, that man is anointed to be an evangelist. And I've been to Zimbabwe with him, and it's just the scenarios he would find himself in, but he would share the gospel so easily and people receive it. There was a gym I went to when I first went to Ashford, and Pastor David went there. The amount of times there was a spa, like jacuzzi area, without fail, every time I would go in there, Pastor David would be in there in the jacuzzi, sharing the gospel with young, old, men, women, whoever it is. But the main thing, it was so natural. It wasn't forced. The people weren't thinking like, get me away from this man. The people were literally drawn to what he was sharing. And I would say you could tell, like, we can all evangelize, like you said. That man, I think, was like anointed. It just flowed from him so naturally.
Because he was set apart, and God gave him a very specific calling to his life to be an evangelist. And some people are like that, and we don't have to feel bad when we see people like that and be like,
which
so
happens.
bad, because we are all being commanded by God to go and share the gospel. Now, he didn't say you are all going to have a very specific calling as evangelist and nothing else in your life, but maybe that's not your gift, and there will be something else. Doesn't mean you can't evangelize. Doesn't mean you cannot share the gospel. Through all the different ways we've said, there's more ways. Use your gift. If you don't know, ask God what your gift is, and he can show you. Try to, find situations. Maybe you can just start by, talking about just to your neighbors, or building a relationship with your neighbors, your colleagues, your family, your friends. If you find yourself in a position where you want to go further, or you don't know what to do, maybe reach out to someone and ask them to guide you and to help you, understand better what to do. I've had teachers that have showed me, and I'm very grateful because it's really helped me understand ways. Even Joel recently told me, oh yeah, the way you go to the neighbors and give them food. For me, it's just normal because.
Well, yeah, I was just wanting to finish on that point actually, because I think don't overcomplicate the concept of gifts. A lot of times it's a fancy way of saying the things that maybe come most naturally to us. And I would say the things that you're sort of naturally good at, but I know for a lot of us we wouldn't want to view ourselves as good, or we may not realize we're good. But something that just comes naturally to you, a lot of times it will be a gift, and it will go hand in hand with evangelism. So again, during lockdown, Canel's been just cooking so much, but always the first thought is, oh, I could do this for this person, or oh, I know so and so's had a baby and they love this cake. Let me bake this cake for them. And it's so normal for Canel that when we spoke, you were saying you didn't even, it's not something you think about. But Canel has so many conversations about her faith, about church, not forced. She's not given the cake to share the gospel.
Yeah.
She's just, it naturally just seems to come up, which I think God allows to happen. But for Canel, it was never like a realization, was it, of that's like a gift. But for me, that's not
But for you, it would be
natural,
music.
is it? Exactly, yeah. Music, it was always something that just seemed to come naturally to me. And I probably would have thought the same of like, I was only making things rhyme. It's not super special because maybe that came more naturally to me, and I didn't realize it wasn't as natural to other people. And I never set out to do evangelistic rap, but by nature of me just sharing my life, becoming a Christian and sharing that, I've had lots of feedback from people saying, oh, people that aren't even believers saying, oh, that was interesting. They want to know more about my faith and whatever. It came more naturally
Some
to me.
people, it could be even parenthood. Honestly, I've seen people that do parenthood in a way where it's like missionary.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, well, I mean, it is. So you don't need to go far to do things to evangelize.
Definitely.
Hope this has helped. There was to leave. There was this bracelet I had when I was a child, and moved to lots of different ones. Maybe people that grew up in the church in the 90s, noughties had it as well. It was a bracelet that said WWJD, which means what would Jesus do? And I would always forget because it was to remember what would Jesus do. And I think in evangelization, that is a great reminder to always think, oh yeah, what would Jesus do? Jesus did preached his own gospel in so many different ways, to so many different types of people, so many different occasions, events. Like, just read the gospels in the Bible and you see how Jesus did it. So if you find yourself in a way, just think, what would Jesus do? He built relationships. Sometimes he was just invited to have a meal, and then, being Jesus, he just preached about himself. But like so many different things, and sometimes
And
he had to be harsh
for different people, like you said.
Sometimes he had to be harsh and to be straight on point and go where it hurts, not to hurt, but because that's what the person needed. A reality check. Sometimes it was very, very
He even said to
soft,
Peter,
gentle
"Get
ways.
behind me, Satan." And Peter was his friend, wasn't it? So it's not even just people that he didn't agree with, he was harsh with. It's whenever the circumstance needed a certain approach, he took it, didn't he?
Exactly. He did it through stories. Anyway, there's so many different things. I didn't see all of it. I think we were stuck on the comments.
We didn't realize there's been so many more comments.
Sorry. So yeah, if anyone has any tips or any other ways you have for evangelizing, things you've done, or even like advice for people, just you can say it.
Yeah, let us know.
And you see, thank you, Jimmy. It was the Angles ladder. You're right. For the ladder of where people are. So if you want to check that out, guys, Angels ladder.
Angles ladder. Yes. Well, we're gonna go through all your comments after this episode because we've obviously missed a lot of what's going on. But yeah, we hope and pray that you've been able to take something away. I was gonna ask Canel to give sort of a takeaway point, but I think you summed it up magnificently.
I knew he was going to ask me.
Preempted it. So yeah, I think that's the key thing. And I guess, again, just to not add, but to emphasize what Canel's saying, I think evangelism is something that we can all do. There's so many different approaches to do it, like we've said. And I think the key thing behind it all is love. If we don't have love, the true love that comes from God, we have nothing. The Bible tells us this, and it says even if we're gifted in so many areas but we don't have love, it's like a noisy clanging gong, and it's a horrible sound. So keep love at the center of all that you do. Make sure that you still add to the comments, let people know different approaches and whatnot.
And I have one last verse which says, Isaiah 52, how beautiful are the feet of those who bring good news. How
Amen.
Beautiful are the feet of those who bring the gospel.
Amen.
I'll leave you with that.
We'll leave you with that. Have a blessed rest of the day or rest of the evening, and we will catch you back here in 2 weeks' time.
Bye.
Bye.